The quiet hum of the hospital filled the air, a steady rhythm interrupted only by the occasional footsteps of nurses making their rounds. Outside, the rain poured relentlessly, the wind howling through the streets of the sleeping city. It was the kind of night that made even the most routine tasks feel heavy, a reminder of the unpredictable world beyond the warm lights of the hospital. Inside the lobby, the receptionist glanced at the clock. It was nearing midnight and the emergency room had been surprisingly calm. Most patients had settled into their rooms, and the night staff moved through their duties with quiet efficiency. Little did they know, the calm was about to be broken in the most unexpected way. Out in the rain-soaked streets, a figure moved through the darkness. A large dog, its coat drenched, carrying something precious in its jaws. The animal's size and determination made it stand out, even in the chaos of the storm. It padded toward the hospital with a deliberate urgency, ignoring the rain that matted its fur and the cold wind that bit at its frame. The hospital doors slid open with a faint hiss as the dog approached, its heavy paws leaving wet prints on the polished floor. The few people in the lobby froze, their eyes widening at the sight. In its powerful jaws, the dog carried a small bundle wrapped in a worn blanket, the edges frayed and damp. From within the bundle came the faintest sound, a baby's cry, muffled but unmistakable. A young nurse named Clara was the first to react. She rushed forward, her heart pounding as she tried to process what she was seeing. The dog stopped in its tracks, its deep, intelligent eyes locking onto hers. It gently placed the bundle on the floor before stepping back, its head lowering slightly as if asking for help. Clara knelt down, her hands trembling as she carefully unwrapped the blanket. Inside was a tiny baby, its face pale, but its cries strong. The child's small fists flailed as Clara's mind raced. Who had left this baby in the care of a dog? And how had the animal known to bring it here? "We need help," Clara called out, her voice breaking through the stunned silence. Within moments, a doctor and another nurse arrived, their faces a mix of confusion and urgency. Clara handed the baby to the doctor, who immediately began checking its vital signs. The dog stood silently, watching every movement. Its large body was still, but its eyes darted between the baby and the medical staff, as if ensuring they were doing everything right. Clara glanced at the animal, her breath catching as she realized how soaked and tired it looked. This wasn't just any dog, it was a protector, a guardian that had braved the storm to save a life. As the doctor carried the baby to the pediatric unit, Clara turned her attention to the dog. She crouched down, her voice soft and steady. "You did something incredible tonight," she said, reaching out her hand. The dog hesitated for a moment before stepping closer, its massive head lowering to nuzzle her palm. Around them, the hospital staff murmured in amazement, their voices a mixture of awe and disbelief. Who would have thought that a dog could act with such purpose and determination? Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. The dog had come here for a reason, and it had done so with a sense of urgency that suggested it understood the stakes. As the rain continued to pound against the windows, Clara led the dog to a dry corner of the lobby. She fetched a towel from the supply closet, gently drying its fur as it stood patiently. "You must be exhausted," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "But you didn't give up, did you?" The dog let out a low, rumbling sound. Not quite a bark, but a noise that seemed to convey its own kind of language. Clara smiled, her heart swelling, as she realized the depth of the bond she already felt with this animal. It wasn't just a dog, it was a hero, one that had brought hope on a night filled with storms. As the hospital settled back into its rhythm, the dog remained by Clara's side, its eyes never straying far from the hallway where the baby had been taken. Clara couldn't help but wonder about the story behind this extraordinary moment. Who had left the baby? Why had they trusted this dog to deliver it? And most importantly, what would happen next? The answers would come. But for now, Clara focused on the task at hand. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a story that would change lives, not just for the baby, but for everyone touched by the actions of this remarkable dog. The night wore on, but the hospital buzzed with whispers about the dog and the baby. Word spread quickly among the staff, their amazement growing with each retelling. Nurses peeked into the lobby, and even a few patients craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the large, soaked animal lying calmly by the young nurse's side. Clara remained next to the dog, her hand resting gently on its back as she tried to process the incredible events of the evening. The baby, now safe in the pediatric unit, was stable but under observation. The doctors were working to piece together the puzzle of its arrival, but there were still no answers. Clara's thoughts kept circling back to the dog, its determination, its precise actions, and the inexplicable trust it had placed in humans to help the child. It was as though the animal understood far more than it should have. After a while, the dog stirred, lifting its massive head to glance toward the hallway where the baby had been taken. Clara followed its gaze, a shiver running through her despite the warmth of the hospital. "You're waiting for news, aren't you?" she said softly. "You're not just a messenger. You care about that baby, don't you?" The dog let out a low whine, its eyes filled with something that could only be described as sorrow. Clara felt her throat tighten. She had always believed animals were capable of deep emotions, but this was different. This dog wasn't just a passive observer, it was a guardian, and its bond with the baby was undeniable. She decided to take the dog outside for a break, leading it through the sliding doors into the rain-soaked night. The storm had calmed, but the streets were still slick, and the cold air nipped at her cheeks. The dog sniffed the ground, its large paws leaving impressions in the wet pavement, but it didn't stray far from her side. "Do you belong to someone?" Clara wondered aloud as she crouched to meet the dog's gaze. She scanned its neck, looking for a collar or any sign of identification, but found nothing. No collar, no tags. Where did you come from? The dog tilted its head slightly, as if trying to understand her words. Clara sighed, her mind racing with questions. Had it been abandoned, like the baby? Or was it part of something much bigger, something she couldn't yet grasp? When they returned to the lobby, Clara dried the dog again with a fresh towel. It seemed more relaxed now, its body no longer trembling from the cold. As it lay down on the floor, its head resting on its paws, Clara realized it wasn't going anywhere. It was waiting for the baby, for answers, or perhaps for both. A doctor approached her, his expression thoughtful. "The baby's doing well," he said, his voice low so as not to disturb the quiet atmosphere. "But we have no leads on who left it or why. No one's come forward, and there's no identifying information." Clara nodded, her mind lingering on the dog. "Do you think—" She hesitated, the idea sounding ridiculous even to her. "Do you think the dog might know something? It's as if it's guarding the baby." The doctor smiled faintly. "Animals have a way of surprising us," he said. "Whatever the case, this dog may be the key to understanding what happened tonight." As the hours passed, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the dog had a story to tell. It remained by her side, its presence calm but watchful. When the hospital grew quiet again, she decided to sit with it, hoping to piece together the fragments of this extraordinary night. Reaching out, she stroked its fur, her voice soft. You brought that baby here for a reason. I don't know how or why, but you knew it needed help. Maybe you've been through something too, something that taught you what it means to protect." The dog's ears twitched, and it let out a soft huff, its eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Clara felt a surge of emotion, a mix of awe and compassion. Whatever this dog had experienced, it had chosen to act selflessly, risking everything to ensure the baby's safety. As dawn began to break, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Clara made a silent promise. She would do everything in her power to uncover the truth, to understand the bond between this remarkable animal and the baby it had saved. But more than that, she would make sure they were both safe, whatever it took. For now, though, she let the dog rest, its massive frame finally still as it drifted into a deep, exhausted sleep. Clara watched over it, her heart full of questions and a growing determination to find the answers. The first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, casting a warm glow over the quiet lobby. Clara stretched her tired limbs, having stayed by the dog's side throughout the night. The large animal was still asleep, its rhythmic breathing a testament to the sheer exhaustion it must have felt after the night's ordeal. In the pediatric unit, the baby had been given a clean bill of health. Clara had visited earlier to check on the child, finding it bundled snugly in a crib with a faint smile on its face. The sight had filled her with relief, but questions still swirled in her mind. Who had left the baby? And how had the dog come to be its protector? As if sensing her thoughts, the dog stirred, lifting her head and glancing around. When her eyes landed on Clara, she let out a low, contented huff. "Good morning," Clara said softly, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Ready to figure out your mystery?" Clara decided to take a proactive approach. She borrowed a scanner from the hospital's security team to check if the dog had a microchip. Though the dog had no collar or tags, there was a chance someone had taken the precaution of implanting one. With the scanner in hand, Clara knelt beside the dog, stroking her fur gently as she passed the device over her shoulder. A faint beep startled her. She looked at the screen, her heart skipping a beat as it displayed an identification number. "You do have someone," she murmured. "Let's find out who." Clara enlisted the help of a colleague to access the database associated with the microchip. Within minutes, the screen displayed the owner's name and contact information. But as Clara read the details, her brows furrowed in confusion. The address listed was over 50 miles away, and the owner's contact number had been disconnected. "Why would you be so far from home?" Clara wondered aloud, glancing at the dog. The dog stared back at her with those intelligent eyes, as though understanding her confusion. Clara decided to dig deeper, calling a local animal shelter in the area listed on the microchip. The shelter staff was cooperative but had little information. "That address belongs to a family that moved out months ago," the woman on the phone explained. "But I remember that dog. It used to live with them. A St. Bernard, right?" "Yes," Clara replied, her grip tightening on the phone. "Do you know anything else?" The shelter worker hesitated. "The family was struggling. They had to surrender the dog to us, but it didn't stay long. A neighbor took her in, or so we thought." Clara's mind raced. The pieces of the puzzle didn't quite fit, but one thing was becoming clear. The dog had been passed between homes, her stability shaken long before this night. And yet, despite everything, she had found her way to the hospital, carrying a baby whose origins were just as mysterious. Her thoughts were interrupted by a commotion at the front desk. A man had entered the lobby, his clothes soaked and his face pale. His eyes darted around, frantic and searching. Clara stood, her instincts kicking in. "Can I help you?" she asked, approaching him. The man's gaze landed on the dog, and his expression crumbled. "That's Bella," he said, his voice breaking. "That's her." Clara's heart raced. "You know this dog?" The man nodded, tears streaming down his face. "She belongs to my sister. She's gone. She had the baby with her when—" He choked on his words, unable to continue. Clara's breath caught. The pieces began to fall into place, the weight of the situation settling heavily on her shoulders. "Come with me," she said gently, leading him to a quiet corner where they could talk. Through halting words, the man explained what had happened. His sister had been fleeing an abusive situation, trying to protect her baby and find a safe place to stay. Bella, ever loyal, had stayed by her side, but somewhere along the way, the storm had overtaken them. The mother hadn't made it, but Bella had refused to leave the baby behind. She had carried the child through the night, braving the elements to reach the one place where help might be found. By the time the man finished his story, Clara's eyes were brimming with tears. She glanced at Bella, who was now sitting quietly at her feet, her watchful eyes focused on the man. The loyalty and love this dog had shown were beyond anything she had ever witnessed. "I don't know how to thank her," the man said, his voice trembling. "She saved my nephew's life." Clara knelt beside Bella, her hand resting on the dog's massive head. "You're a hero," she whispered. "You did what no one else could." The hospital staff was abuzz with the incredible story. Nurses, doctors, and even patients couldn't stop talking about Bella, the heroic dog who had saved a baby's life. Clara stayed by Bella's side, ensuring she was cared for and comfortable after her extraordinary ordeal. Though the dog's story was heart-wrenching, her actions had inspired everyone who heard them. Meanwhile, the baby was thriving. Clara visited the pediatric unit regularly, watching as the child grew stronger with each passing hour. The man, Bella's owner's brother, stayed close as well, deeply shaken but grateful for the chance to be with his nephew. Together, he and Clara worked to piece together the future for both the baby and Bella. "Bella's loyalty is unmatched," Clara said one afternoon as she sat with the man in the hospital cafeteria. Bella lay at her feet, her massive head resting on her paws. She didn't just carry the baby to safety, she guarded him the whole way here. "That's something I'll never forget." The man nodded, his eyes soft as he looked at Bella. "She's always been protective," he said. "Even when things were tough for my sister, Bella never left her side. And when she had the baby, Bella took on the role of protector without hesitation. It doesn't surprise me that she did this, but it still feels like a miracle." The man revealed more about Bella's past as they talked. She had been a constant in his sister's life, offering companionship and comfort through years of hardship. When the baby was born, Bella had instinctively taken on the role of guardian, often curling up beside the crib or alerting the family to the baby's cries. In her, Clara saw a depth of love and responsibility that was rare, even among humans. As the days passed, Clara worked with social services to ensure the baby's safety. They found a temporary foster home while the man filed for custody, determined to give his nephew the loving and stable life his sister had dreamed of. Bella's role in the baby's rescue had touched the hearts of everyone involved, and the hospital staff rallied around the family, offering support in any way they could. One morning, Clara arrived at the hospital to find Bella sitting outside the pediatric unit, her gaze fixed on the window where the baby could be seen. The sight brought a lump to Clara's throat. "Still keeping watch, huh?" she said, crouching beside the dog. Bella looked at her and let out a soft whine, her tail thumping against the floor. The bond between Bella and the baby was unshakable. When the man was granted temporary custody, he expressed his wish to take Bella home with them. "She's part of this family," he said, his voice firm. "I can't imagine separating her from my nephew." Clara was relieved to hear it. Bella had proven herself to be far more than a pet. She was a hero, a protector, and a symbol of unwavering loyalty. She had braved the storm and the unknown to save a life, and now she would continue to be a part of that life, offering love and security in the way only she could. On their last day at the hospital, the staff gathered to say goodbye. Bella, her coat now clean and glossy, stood proudly beside her new family. The baby, cradled in his uncle's arms, cooed softly as Bella nuzzled his tiny hand. Clara knelt down, her hand resting on Bella's head. "You've done something incredible, Bella," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've changed all of our lives." The hospital lobby erupted in applause as the trio walked out into the sunlight, a new chapter beginning for all of them. Clara watched them go, her heart full as she thought about the lessons Bella had taught her. In a world often filled with uncertainty and pain, acts of love and bravery like Bella's reminded her of the good that could shine through. As she returned to her work, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she had been part of something extraordinary, an event that had brought people together, healed broken hearts, and created a future full of hope for a baby who might not have had one otherwise. Weeks later, Clara found herself thinking about Bella and the baby often. The story had spread far beyond the hospital, inspiring countless people with its message of resilience and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. Bella had become a symbol of loyalty and courage, her actions showing the world what love could achieve. One quiet evening, Clara sat in her apartment, scrolling through her phone when a notification caught her attention. It was a photo sent by the baby's uncle. In it, Bella lay protectively beside the crib, her massive frame curled around the baby as he slept peacefully. The caption read, "She hasn't left his side. We're all doing well, thanks to her." Clara's eyes brimmed with tears as she stared at the image. Bella had found her place again, not just as a guardian, but as part of a family that deeply needed her. It was a reminder of the incredible role she had played in turning tragedy into hope. The hospital staff had been just as moved by Bella's story. In honor of her heroism, they had commissioned a plaque to be placed in the lobby. The inscription read, "To Bella, the dog who reminded us all of the power of love and loyalty. A true hero." Clara had been present when the plaque was unveiled, her heart swelling with pride as she thought of everything Bella had endured to bring the baby to safety. Though Bella's new life was far from Clara's day-to-day routine, the memory of their bond lingered. Every time she passed the plaque, she paused to reflect on the extraordinary night that had changed so many lives. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always light to be found. Months later, Clara received another update. This time, it was a video of the baby taking his first wobbly steps, Bella walking patiently beside him as though guiding him forward. The sight brought a smile to Clara's face, and she couldn't help but laugh when the video ended with Bella giving the baby a gentle nudge back to safety after he stumbled. As she replayed the video, Clara felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had been part of something extraordinary, a story of courage, kindness, and the unbreakable bond between a dog and the baby she had saved. It was a reminder of the beauty in small acts of bravery and the ripple effect they could have on the world. That night, as Clara prepared for bed, she paused by the window and looked out at the quiet city below. The same streets that had been stormy and chaotic that fateful night were now calm, but the memory of Bella's journey remained vivid in her mind. She didn't just save him, Clara whispered to herself. She saved all of us in her own way. And with that thought, Clara smiled, her heart full of hope. Bella's story would live on, not just in the lives she had touched, but in the lessons she had taught, that love knows no boundaries, courage can change the course of fate, and even the smallest among us can become heroes. If this heartwarming story of loyalty and courage inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's celebrate the extraordinary bonds we share with animals and the incredible acts of kindness that remind us of the good in the world.